You won't believe what happened to a racist policeman when he detained a black woman veteran in a store. And before watching, subscribe to the channel, like it, and send the story to your friends, and we will start. Chapter 1. The Quiet City. In a small southern town where life flowed smoothly and calmly, people knew each other by name. Every morning, residents gathered at the local cafe family meetings discussing the latest news and sharing gossip. There was always the scent of freshly brewed coffee and freshly baked buns, and outside the window, nature was blooming, filling the air with a light spring whisper. However, beneath this peaceful surface, there were biases and stereotypes that had long been ingrained in the minds of some residents. Police Chief John Bennett was one of those people. Having served in the police for more than 20 years, he became known for his tough approach to work. His methods caused a lot of controversy, but he always considered himself right, and his authority was inviolable. John was a racist, and this influence affected his behavior both in his official and personal life. He often made ambiguous remarks about black residents of the city, which caused discontent among his colleagues, but no one dared to openly argue with him. Meanwhile, changes were taking place in the city. Kimberly James, a black female veteran, returned home after several years of military service. She was known for her kindness and active involvement in the community. Kimberly was always eager to help others and was ready to support those who needed help. Her return was a cause for joy among friends and acquaintances. On the day this story began, Kimberly went to the family shopping grocery store to buy groceries for her lunch. She was happily picking out fresh vegetables and fruits when she suddenly noticed that someone was watching her. Turning around, she saw John Bennett standing at the entrance with a sullen face. Chapter 2. Meeting at the store. Kimberly felt a little uneasy, but decided to ignore it. She was still picking up groceries when John came closer. At first, he just watched her, but soon his prejudice got the better of him. "What are you doing here?" he asked with disdain. Kimberly raised her head and looked at him in surprise. "I'm just buying groceries," she replied calmly. "You shouldn't be here," he said, and his voice sounded threatening. Kimberly felt her heart beat faster. She knew he was a cop, but she couldn't figure out why he was acting like this. "Why are you talking to me like that? I am a citizen of this city," she said with dignity. At that moment, John pulled out his gun and pointed it at Kimberly. "Get out of here before I call for backup," he said with fury in his voice. The people in the store froze in shock. No one dared to interfere. Kimberly felt anger building inside her. She was a veteran who had gone through many trials, and she wasn't going to give up without a fight. "You have no right to threaten me," she said confidently. "I served my country to protect people like you." John just grinned. "Served? You don't deserve respect," he said with contempt. Chapter 3. Panic in the store. Meanwhile, there was a panic in the store. One of the customers, seeing what was happening, called the police. A few minutes later, several officers arrived at the scene. When they saw the situation, they quickly realized what was going on. The officers approached John and started asking questions. "What's going on here?" one of them asked. John tried to justify himself, but his colleagues did not believe him. They knew Kimberly as a respected woman in the community and a veteran. "Put your weapon away," one of the officers ordered John. At that moment, he realized that he was trapped. His actions led to him becoming the subject of an investigation. Kimberly stood quietly, watching John lose control of the situation. She felt relieved when the weapon was removed from her. "Do you understand what you've done?" one of the officers asked John. He just remained silent, realizing the gravity of the situation. Chapter 4. Consequences. A few days later, John was called in for questioning about the incident at the store. His actions were condemned as unacceptable, and he was suspended from service. It was a real blow to his reputation. Kimberly also received support from the community. Many residents came to her with apologies for what happened. She has become a symbol of courage and perseverance. People began to openly discuss the issues of racism and prejudice. They realized the importance of respecting each other regardless of skin color. At the next city council meeting, Kimberly made a speech about the need to combat bias and racism in the police. Her words inspired many people in the audience. They realized the importance of respecting each other regardless of skin color or background. "We must unite and work together to make our city safe for everyone," she said with fervor in her voice. "Each of us has the right to respect and security." Chapter 5. Changes in the city. After the incident, the city began to change. Local residents began to actively participate in social events. They organized meetings to discuss issues of racism and prejudice. Kimberly became a leader of these initiatives. She conducted seminars and lectures on the importance of mutual understanding. John was left alone with his thoughts. He understood that his actions had led to the destruction of his life and career. He lost the trust of his colleagues and the respect of the community. Karma overtook him at the most unexpected moment. While Kimberly continued her active work in the community, John sank deeper into depression. He couldn't believe that his life had changed so much in just one day. He lost his job, his friends, and the respect of others. But one day, John decided to change his life. He started attending support groups for those who faced difficulties after quitting their jobs. There he met people with similar problems and began to realize his mistakes. Chapter 6. A New Path. At one of the meetings, he heard a story from one of the band members about how important it is to admit your mistakes and learn from them. It made him think about his actions and how they affected other people's lives. "I never thought about how my words might hurt others," he confessed to the group. "I was blind to my preconceived beliefs." These words were the beginning of his journey to change himself. He began reading books about racism and prejudice. He began attending seminars on how to become a better person and more open to other cultures. Kimberly continued her active work in the community. She organized events to raise awareness about racial prejudice and helped other veterans adapt to life after service. One day, during one of the events, Kimberly met a young man named Michael. He was a black activist and also served in the Army. They quickly found a common language and began working together on projects to improve the lives of local residents. Michael became a valuable assistant to Kimberly. They held joint events to teach young people the importance of respecting each other and combating bias. Their work attracted more and more attention from the local media. Their stories inspired other people to take active action. Chapter 7. Face-to-Face Meeting. It's been a few months since the incident at the store. Kimberly continued her active work in the community. She organized events to raise awareness of racial prejudice and helped other veterans adapt to life after service. One day, John decided to come to one of Kimberly's events. He understood that it would be difficult, but he felt the need to face those people whom he had offended by his actions. When he entered the hall, all eyes turned to him. Many people recognized him as the police chief who had once threatened Kimberly. John's heart was pounding with excitement. He knew he was going to have a difficult conversation. Kimberly noticed him and approached him with a determined look. "What are you doing here?" she asked without further ado. "I came to apologize," John said quietly. "I understand that I've hurt you with my actions." Kimberly looked at him carefully. She could see the sincerity in his eyes. "It's important," she said slowly, "but words are not enough. We need to act." Chapter 8. A New Path for Everyone. After this meeting, John began to actively participate in Kimberly's events. He became a volunteer and helped organize various initiatives to combat racism and prejudice in his city. The locals began to notice the changes in John. They saw his efforts to atone for his mistakes and began to welcome him back into the community. Kimberly continued to inspire people with her story. Her leadership helped open many people's eyes to the importance of combating bias. One day, during one of the events, John came on stage and shared his story about how he had changed thanks to Kimberly and her work. He urged everyone present to realize the importance of combating bias. "It's never too late to change yourself," he said with sincerity in his voice. Chapter 9. A Lesson for Everyone. This incident was a turning point for the entire city. People began to openly discuss the issues of racism and prejudice. They realized the importance of respecting each other regardless of skin color or origin. Kimberly continued her active work in the community. She organized events to raise awareness of racial prejudice and helped other veterans adapt to life after service. John was left alone with his thoughts. He understood that his actions had led to the destruction of his life and career. This lesson was a hard reminder for him that hatred and prejudice will never lead to good. Thus, the story of Kimberly and John has become a lesson for everyone about the importance of respecting each other and fighting prejudice in any form. Karma really overtook each of them, one in the form of the loss of everything he had, and the other in the form of new hope and the opportunity to change the world around him for the better. Chapter 10. The Future of the City. Over time, the city began to change for the better thanks to the efforts of people like Kimberly and John. Together, they organized a number of events to improve relations between different ethnic groups. Their work attracted the attention of local media and inspired other cities to follow their example. Kimberly has become a well-known figure not only in her city but also outside it. Her story has inspired many people to fight prejudice and racism across the country. John also became an active participant in these changes. He continued to work on himself and learn from others about the importance of respecting each other. His experience became a lesson for many police officers. They began to reconsider their approaches to working with local residents. Chapter 11. A New Day. In the end, Kimberly and John's story became a symbol of hope for the entire city. People began to understand the importance of fighting prejudice and racism. They realized that only together they could make a difference. Every year, the city held the Unity Day Festival, where residents of different cultures came together to celebrate the diversity of their community. This festival has become a symbol of unity and mutual understanding among the residents of the city. Kimberly continued to inspire people with her example. She knew that the struggle for equality never ends, but every step forward counts. John found his place in the new world. He became an advocate for change within the police force and worked to make his work more open to all residents of the city. Epilogue. A Lesson in Karma. The story of Kimberly and John has taught us all an important lesson. Hate breeds hate, but love and understanding can change the world around us. Each of us can become a part of this change. All we need to do is open our hearts to others. With each passing day, the city became a better place. People began to understand the value of diversity and the importance of respecting each other, regardless of skin color or origin. And although the path has been long and difficult, every step forward brings us closer to a world without hate, a world of love and mutual understanding. Chapter 12. Restoring Trust. Several years have passed since the incident at the family shopping store. The city has changed. New initiatives to combat racism have become the norm for most residents. Kimberly continued her community service work. She organized literacy courses for young people from low-income families and conducted leadership training for women. One of these courses was an event called The Future Begins Today. A lot of young people from different walks of life came to it, from students to working parents. Kimberly prepared a program that included discussions about the importance of having a voice in society and how you can use your abilities to change the world around you. John Bennett was also present at the event. He became one of the leading speakers at seminars on restoring trust between police and citizens after the incident with Kimberly. His experience became an important lesson for many participants of the program. He shared his mistakes and the conclusions he had made over the years of working on himself. I was blind to the fact that my work should be aimed at protecting all citizens, he said during his speech to an audience of young people. "I hope that you can avoid the mistakes that I made." Chapter 13. Joining Forces. Every year, the number of events increased. Residents of the city began to unite to solve social problems together, from fighting poverty to improving the level of education among young people. Kimberly worked on creating a mentoring program for young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. She wanted to give them the opportunity to see the future without restrictions. One day, during one of the meetings, she met a woman named Laura, a mother of 2 children from a disadvantaged area of the city. Laura was determined to change her life for the sake of her children. She dreamed of giving them a better education and opportunities for the future. Kimberly invited Laura to become a mentor for other women in a similar situation. They began working together on a program to support single mothers. This initiative quickly gained popularity among the women of the city. Each new participant brought her own ideas and success stories. John was also actively involved in these initiatives. He worked to create a program to increase trust between the police and local residents through open dialogues and joint activities to improve the security of the area. Chapter 14. New Challenges. However, not everything went smoothly. Despite Kimberly and John's best efforts to improve relations between different groups of the city's population, some residents remained unhappy with the changes or even resisted them. One day, a meeting of the local city security council was held. It was attended by residents from different parts of the city, both supporters of change and opponents of change. A tense atmosphere arose during the discussions. Some people began to express their dissatisfaction with the work of the police. "Why should we trust the police after that incident?" one woman from the audience asked. "How can we be sure of their intentions?" These words provoked a strong reaction among the participants of the meeting. Some supported her point of view, while others tried to protect police officers from accusations. Kimberly felt the need to step in. "I understand your concerns," she said confidently. "But that's why we're here today, to create a space for dialogue between all sides." John also made a speech. "I understand your pain and anger," he said softly, "but I'm here to work to restore trust between the police and the community." Chapter 15. The Way Forward. After this meeting, it was decided to create a working group of representatives from different segments of the city's population to discuss issues of security and trust between the police and citizens. This was an important step forward for all participants in the process. They understood the need for an open dialogue to resolve conflicts. Kimberly took on the role of moderator of these meetings. She organized the discussions so that each side could express their thoughts without fear of being judged or misunderstood. Every week, they gathered together to discuss topical issues of the district's security, from drug addiction problems to the need to create safe spaces for young people. John also actively participated in these meetings. He shared his knowledge on how the police can better interact with local residents to ensure their safety without using force or intimidation. Chapter 16. Uniting for the Sake of Change. Over time, the working group began to bear fruit. Residents began to feel more involved in the decision-making process regarding their safety. They could openly talk about their fears and suggestions for improving the situation in the area. Kimberly noticed changes among the band members. Many people became more open to each other. They began to understand the importance of cooperation for the common good. Soon the working group organized the first city festival called Unity Day. At this event, people from different cultures came together to celebrate the diversity of their community through music, dance, and food from different nationalities. The festival became a symbol of unity among the residents of the city. It was a day of joy and mutual understanding, a day when everyone could feel like a part of something bigger. Chapter 17. Rethinking the Past. Despite the success of the Unity Day festival, some residents remained skeptical about the changes in the city. They considered these initiatives to be only a temporary measure with no real consequences for their lives. Kimberly understood their concerns. She knew that fighting for equality takes time and patience. Together with John, they decided to organize a series of open meetings with local residents to discuss their problems directly without intermediaries or formalities. At one of these meetings, an elderly woman raised her hand. "I want to know how you are going to change the situation. We've heard a lot of promises before." Kimberly replied, "We're not just here to talk, we're here to listen to you." She invited each participant to speak about their fears and hopes for the future of the city. This meeting was a turning point. The residents began to open up to each other. They shared their experiences about how prejudice had affected their lives. Everyone had their own story about how hatred destroys relationships between people. Chapter 18. Overcoming Barriers. Over time, these open meetings became regular. Residents began to understand the importance of communicating honestly with each other without fear of being judged or misunderstood. At one of the meetings, a young woman named Tasha shared her story about how her family faced racism when looking for housing. "We've been looking for an apartment for a long time," she said with sadness in her voice. "Every time we were rejected just because we are black." Her words aroused sympathy among those present. Many began to share their stories about the same experience of discrimination or bias from other residents of the city or even the police. These frank conversations helped break down barriers between people. The participants began to understand each other better, despite differences in skin color or social status. Chapter 19. Joining Forces for the Future. It soon became clear. The dialogue really works. The working group program has led to the creation of a new bridge of trust between the police and local residents. Many people have become more open to interacting with police officers instead of being afraid of them or perceived as enemies. Kimberly continued to lead these meetings with John. They both felt proud that they were able to bring people together for the common goal of creating a safe space for all residents of the city, regardless of their origin or skin color. Each time after the meetings, the participants came out inspired by new ideas on how to improve the life of society together. It was a real victory. Chapter 20. A New Beginning. A few months after the start of the Uniting for Change program, the city has finally seen the real results of its efforts. The crime rate has decreased due to increased interaction between the police and citizens. The Unity Day Festival has become an annual tradition. People of all ages came together to celebrate the diversity of their community through music, dancing, and food from different nationalities. It was a day of joy when everyone could feel like a part of something bigger. John has changed too. He was no longer the kind of person who used force to bully people. Now he has become an advocate for change within the police. His job was not only to ensure order, but also to help people feel safe. Kimberly continued to inspire people with her example. She knew that the struggle for equality never ends, but every step forward counts. Epilogue. A lesson in karma. The story of Kimberly and John has shown us all an important lesson. Hate breeds hate, but love and understanding can change the world around us. Each of us can become a part of this change just by opening our hearts to others. The city was getting better every day. People began to understand the value of diversity and the importance of respecting each other, regardless of skin color or origin. And although the path has been long and difficult, every step forward brings us closer to a world without hate, a world of love and mutual understanding. Thus, Kimberly John's story became a symbol of hope for the whole city. They both realized that only together can they overcome any obstacles. Their work has inspired many people to start changing the world around them. It was a lesson in karma that forever changed the lives of all the participants in this story. Each of us can become a part of this change just by opening our hearts to other people.